Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Love, Mercy, and Grace, where we are continuing our topic on infertility and miscarriage. I am your host, Ruthie.
And I am your co-host, Rose. And before we begin this episode, we want to remind everyone to follow us on all our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Our handle is at Love, Mercy, Grace Podcast. If you are listening to us on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified when our next episode is uploaded. Today, we have our cousin Blanca again with us. She is a wife, mother, grandmother, singer, songwriter, and musician. She was a guest on our episode 4 where she shared the loss of her best friend, Tracy. But she is here today to share her journey with infertility, miscarriage, and the blessing of her 2 miracles. Welcome back, Blanca. How are you today?
Hey, cousins. I'm doing well. Thank you.
We're doing great. Thank you. And we are so happy to have you here again. And this time we have another topic, infertility and miscarriage. So I'm going to begin with the very first question. When did your infertility journey begin? When did you first realize there might be an issue, and how did you find out?
Well, when I was 15 years old, I had an issue where they initially thought it was my appendix. And when I went to the hospital, it turned out that I had 2 cysts, one the size of an orange and one the size of a golf ball on my right ovary that had ruptured. So when they went in because I was having all the symptoms of appendicitis, one cyst was on top of my ovary and the other one was by my fallopian tubes. And so the one above my ovary had ruptured. And so they had to take my ovary. And so I only had one ovary. And so they had told me then that I could have issues because I only had that one functioning ovary. But, at 15 years old, I wasn't thinking about having children. So it just didn't affect me. But then, at 18 years old, so all this time I've had issues. And so when I was 18 years old, I was at the doctor again because I was having issues again. And that's when the Dr. Washington, I'll never forget, Jerome Washington, told me that I was sterile, that I could not have children. So, I was 18 when I found out.
Wow. And like you said, at 15, one's not thinking about having kids, or one's not thinking about how that is going to affect them later on in life. And when you heard that news, when they told you that you were sterile at 18, as a woman, how did that make you feel when you heard that news?
I was devastated because I love children. And, I'd had dreams of having, children. I remember as a little girl, I would always play. I didn't play with dolls, by the way, but when we would play house, like me and my cousin Alma, or, we would play like we had children. I always had the name Ileana, and I would always pretend that my baby, her name was going to be Ileana. So, when I was told that I couldn't have children, it just really, really affected me. And I was devastated. I love children. And so, I did get very emotional and sad that I would never be able to have children.
How did you process that emotionally? Did it take you a while, or did you eventually come to accept it, or how did that play out?
Honestly, I never accepted it. I didn't. I always have been a believer in Jesus. So I've always known that even though I didn't have that relationship I do now, I've always known and believed that God does miracles. And for some reason, I just felt like it wasn't true. I never accepted it. But it was always in the back of my mind what my doctor told me. And said that I couldn't have kids. And I kind of shrugged it off because I didn't want to accept it,
Yeah, of course. When did you become pregnant the first time, which is with Andres?
I was actually, I got pregnant before Andres and I lost the baby, which was at the time that it gave me hope that I could get pregnant.
Yeah.
But it took a long time. Like we would try and try and try and try and try and try and try. And every day, like it was a, false hope. Does that make sense? It's like, because I've always had issues with my cycles, I would have my cycle and then 3-4 months would go by and I wouldn't have a cycle. And so every time I would miss my cycle, I thought, this is it. I'm pregnant. Never. Just kept on going. I want to say maybe 4 years into being married, your dad prayed for me. I want to say maybe it was like 98, 99 around there, because he had told me of a scripture that God says to go and multiply and be fruitful. And I remember telling him, like, how can I if I can't even have children? I was told that I couldn't have children. Well, your dad prayed for me. And I want to say it was 12 years when I had Andres. I want to say I got pregnant somewhere around May, June, around there with Andres. And so the funny thing about it is that I lived across the street from a girl named Gracie. And at the time, after trying for so long, I couldn't get pregnant. And then it just so happened that one day, Gracie came across the street and she told me that she had a dream that I was pregnant and that I was having a little boy. And I said, nah, that's not going to happen. You know, I can't have children. And she ended up going to buy a pregnancy test. And I had been getting sick that morning, but I thought it was because of the sun. And I stayed up late and had to get up very early. Jojo, so let me backtrack.
Okay.
Jojo came into my life when she was 6 weeks old. Excuse me. She came into my life when she was 2 weeks old. I raised her. And during this time, because I knew I couldn't have kids, I felt like this was God's way of giving me children.
Okay.
Because Jojo was so little. And so I was just supposed to take care of her for a few weeks. Well, a few weeks turned into a few months, and a few months turned into years. So during the time of having Josephine, that's when I ended up getting pregnant with Andres. And then Gracie, like I said, Gracie had come across. She brought me a pregnancy test. And she brought babacoa and everything because she was sure that I was pregnant. And sure enough, I took the test and I was pregnant.
Wow.
And he was a miracle child because I wasn't supposed to be able to have children. And here we are. I got pregnant. I lost the baby and then got pregnant again. And I was like, see, the doctor was a liar because I can't have kids. And I believe strongly that it was your dad's prayers that made me believe and agree with him. I believe that because I agreed with him wholeheartedly, agreed with his prayers, that God answered my prayers.
Amen.
How long after my dad prayed for you did you become pregnant? Did you become pregnant the first time that you miscarried, or did you become pregnant with Andres?
With the first time, it was probably within a year.
Oh, wow.
And then I got pregnant again with Andres.
Can you
How
take
long
us
after
through
the miscarriage? I'm sorry. How long after the miscarriage did you get pregnant with Andres?
I want to say like maybe 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
It was quick. Yeah.
Wow.
Can you take us through that process of your pregnancy with Andres? Like, were you afraid during that time, all through those months? I know that you mentioned that you carried him for 36 weeks. During that time, were you calm or were you worried?
I was a little bit of everything.
Mixed emotions.
Yes. I was afraid of losing him, so I bought me a stethoscope and I would listen to his heartbeat. I would put it on and just listen to his heartbeat um, every day.
Wow.
Like that was the rhythm that I would go to sleep to, his little heartbeat. And I wanted a baby boy so bad, but I didn't know what I was having. I didn't want to know, but I wanted a boy. I wanted a boy so bad. Did I know what I was going to name him? No, because I didn't know what I was having, but I wanted a boy so bad. And I loved being pregnant, although I was sick all my first trimester, half of my second trimester, and then my third trimester. I was sick all the time. 2:00 in the morning, I'd have to get up and feed him Lucky Charms or he would not go to sleep. All night. That was what I would crave, is Lucky Charms all the time. And emotionally, I was so attached to my baby. Like he was my everything. Mm-hmm. I hadn't met him yet and I couldn't wait to meet him. And then I started having contractions at 34 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And doctor put me on bed rest. And then at 36 weeks, he gave me the okay. I remember that Sunday, it was going to be Easter. And that Friday, the doctor okayed me to, if the baby comes, the baby comes. And that Monday, my mom took me walking to Pecan Valley Park. And Tuesday morning, my water broke.
Wow.
And I went to the hospital. And then my little güerito was born.
And how did you feel? Because you wanted a boy so badly. So how did you feel when they told you it's a boy?
I cried. And I just was so overly ecstatic. I was so excited about him and he became like mine. He was mine. And he was so cute. He is so cute. My baby's adorable. And yeah. That's your godson, girl. But yes, Andres is my baby, the love of my life. And I didn't know what I was going to name him. That's the only thing. The nurse says, "Oh, what's his name?" And I was like, "I don't know." And
How did you come up with his name?
Because I used to like Andres Garcia from the novelas.
Oh, yeah.
And so they brought me a baby book and everything. And I didn't like any of the names. And all of a sudden I was like, I know what's his name. His name's Andres. And so that's how he has his name, Andres. He was named after Andres Garcia.
Oh, this time thought it was named after Andrew in the Bible. And okay, and then I know that a couple of years later, of course, you ended up pregnant, and that's when you experienced your miscarriage. But before, I do have a question. How long after did you become pregnant with that child? After Andres, how long after that?
6 years.
Okay, 6 years. 5 or 6 years later.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I want to say 5 years.
And how far along were you when you miscarried?
22 weeks.
22 weeks?
Wow.
Wow, Blanca, that you were pretty far along.
Yep.
How far along were you when you had the first miscarriage, the one before Andres?
Like 6 weeks.
Okay. So what was that process like, the one that you lost at 22 weeks? Wow. Can you walk us through what you experienced physically, emotionally, and spiritually?
So when Juan and I got married, we had agreed that I didn't want any more children. And then he wanted another child. I didn't. And then when I wanted one, he didn't want one. And then we finally both came to the agreement. If it happens, it happens. And so we were married with 5 years before that 3 happened. And this is when we got pregnant with Bean. We call her Bean because when we first saw the sonogram, it looked like little beans. So, I was at work and, all of a sudden I was having like really bad pain. I didn't say anything to anyone, but I had to run an errand for work with one of our chemists and I started to faint. And so when he took me to the ER, they told me that I started bleeding. And so when I went to the ER, they told me that everything was okay with the baby, that it was probably just normal, whatever. So then I made an appointment. I went to see my doctor on Monday. And when he did the sonogram, the bleeding stopped. But when I went on Monday, when he did the sonogram, there was no blood flow. There was nothing. And I told the doctor he was wrong. And he was like, there's no blood flow, Miss Livio, whatever. Sent me downstairs. They did another test, a more in-depth test. And they didn't see blood flow or anything. And so the doctor told me that either naturally I was going to start disposing of the baby. Mm-hmm. And when that starts to happen, that I needed to go straight to the ER. Mm-hmm. Well, nothing happened. I never stopped. I never started bleeding. I carried the baby.
My goodness.
Dead inside me for like, it was on a Monday and I didn't go back to the doctor till that following Monday for a week.
Wow.
But no bleeding, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I went back to the doctor and the doctor was doing the sonogram, I'll never forget the baby's eye sockets had already sunk in. Part of the baby was already deteriorating inside me. So I carried my baby dead inside me for a week. And he sent me to the hospital so that they could induce labor. And that was like very devastating because,
oh my gosh,
seeing the baby deteriorate like that, like I could already see her little fingers. I could see all of that. But this time it was like already, like there was no baby. Mm-hmm. And so they sent me next door and they had to induce labor and take the baby out or whatever. It's weird how they insert like pills. Mm-hmm. And then it starts your contractions and mm-hmm. that was it. So that was very devastating. And it was 2 weeks before Christmas. So that was even hard.
Wow.
So then the doctor gave us the clearance for a few months later that we could start trying if we wanted to. And I was just so scared. I was so scared. But now I really wanted a baby, like, bad. Mm-hmm. And I found out that I was going to have a little girl because they sent her off for pathology. And it turns out I lost her to Turner syndrome. And they were able to determine that I was having a girl. And again, I didn't want to know what I was having. I wanted to be surprised. So then, April, on Andres' birthday, we found out that I was pregnant again. And this is when I was pregnant now with Aliyah. And
that was going to be my next question. So how long after that miscarriage did you become pregnant with Aliyah?
I want to say it was like maybe 4 months.
4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I found out I was pregnant. I was like 3 weeks, 4 weeks when I found out I was pregnant with her.
When you had that miscarriage, you explained what you were experiencing physically, right? When you lost a baby. Were you angry about it, or were you just sad? Were you in mixed emotions?
I wasn't angry. I was very, very sad. I was emotionally distraught because here I thought I'm already in my second trimester and all of a sudden the baby stops growing, because that's what happened. That's what Turner syndrome is. I could see the baby already, fingers, and that's all I kept envisioning. Like, why? Why would you take my baby? Why? And that's all I could ask. Like, why? Why give me a child and then take it? Why?
I had no idea that it was your second trimester. When you said 22 weeks, I'm like, wow, like I can't even begin to imagine like what you went through emotionally, mentally. And obviously you had already felt her move. You were 22 weeks.
Yeah. The kicks. And you know what? I will be honest with you that even after I technically gave birth, right, to a dead baby, for a little while I would feel, I could still feel like she was inside. Like I could still, I know it was me, but I could feel like she was still there. And I would get so depressed and emotionally hurt. And especially because, you know, I had to explain to the kids that I was we're not going to have a baby. You know, the baby is in heaven. And the baby's in heaven with Jesus, because like I said, I've always believed. I've always believed, you know, there's a God, you know, that Jesus is there. I've always believed that. But why would he take my child? Why give me a child and then take him? That's where I was, you know.
And how was Juan, your husband, during that time?
He cried. We both embraced each other. We both, he tried to be strong for me as I tried to be strong for him. But then I thought to myself too, like, I can't even give my husband this child, you know, the one child that, because we both had children already, right? And we wanted this baby and it didn't happen. So
now fast forward to when you said 4 months later, you became pregnant again. And this time you became pregnant with Dalia, your rainbow baby, or your last rainbow baby.
Yeah.
If you can take us through that process of how were you feeling? What gave you hope that this pregnancy was going to be different, or were you afraid? And how did your faith sustain you during that pregnancy?
Because Talia is not only a rainbow baby, she's a miracle baby too.
She's a miracle baby, yes. So if you can share
your story.
That story.
So when we found out we were pregnant with Talia, of course, you know, immediately I was scared. I was afraid that I would miscarry. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to hold the baby. I was afraid of a lot of things. But of course, I was happy. Still, I did not know what I was having. I guess I did not want to know. So everything was going good with my pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. Again, I want to say that I felt her kicks like right away. This is the funny part. I think I weighed less with her than my real weight. It was all baby weight. I gained 9 pounds with her. That's it. It was all. So, right around my second trimester again, the same thing happened. I started to bleed a little, and then I fainted. Once again, ended up in the hospital. I was at work. My coworkers took me to the hospital. And once again, the doctors couldn't find a heartbeat.
Wow.
Didn't believe them. went to my doctor, the appointment, I set up an appointment, got released, went to my doctor. Once again, Dr. Garcia could not find a heartbeat. There was no blood flow. There was nothing.
My goodness.
My heart could not. I couldn't take it. He kept saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Reno, whatever. I'm going to send you next door. We're going to induce labor. And all the thoughts of being back, of me holding a dead baby inside me for a week, I just couldn't bear to do that once again. I was not going to do that. But at the same time, I was not feeling that he was correct. So they sent us downstairs to wait because they were going to send us next door to the hospital. And I was sitting there, and mind you, I had not given my life to Christ yet. But we were sitting there, and I was crying, but I wasn't asking God why. I was just crying. And then all of a sudden, I hear, your child will not die, but live to serve me. And I remember going, and I looked at my husband and I said, our baby's not dead. And he was trying to console me. Babe, our baby is not dead. And he's like, babe, you saw that our baby is not dead. I'm back upstairs. I'm going back upstairs. I'm telling Dr. Garcia, he's wrong. He needs to send me back downstairs to do the testing again. And if that comes up, then okay. But our baby's not dead.
Wow.
Our baby is not dead. So after so much, we went back upstairs, and I told Dr. Garcia, I told the ladies, I need to see Dr. Garcia. They knew what Dr. Garcia had just told me. So they put me in a room. Dr. Garcia walked in, and I said, you're wrong. I said, you are wrong. I said, my baby is not dead. And he says, Mr. Reno. I said, my baby is not dead. I said, send me downstairs. Send me downstairs, do the testing. And if that comes back positive for not being pregnant or whatever the case may be, then I said, but my baby's not dead. So after so much, he sent me downstairs. I remember I was laying down, and the tech was doing the testing. And I asked her, do you see a heartbeat? And she told me, I'm sorry, but I can't give you those results. You have to wait for your doctor. But then she signaled to me, like, with her finger over her mouth, and she turned the monitor, and she pointed, and the heartbeat was going.
Wow.
I could not stop crying. And she just kept signaling, like, please don't say anything. And so I was relieved. And so then he had ordered the results stat. So we went back upstairs, and Dr. Garcia called me, and he told me, this is one time that I don't mind being wrong because you were right. And
Wow.
said the only thing that he could think of was that I was carrying I was carrying twins, one detached and the other one took. And I said, and I choose to believe that my higher power was correct. And that was it. So every 3 weeks, I want to say, I became high risk. So every 3 weeks, I would go for sonograms because that was my risk. And I remember I told them that I didn't want to know what I was having. And so Juan and I were in the room, and I remember we were looking at the monitor, and then one says, hey, she's speaking. And I remember I said, she. And I look at the tech, and I said, am I having a girl? Is he right? And she's like, I don't know. You didn't want to know. And I said, but if he's right, I want to know. And then she went back to the picture, and she pointed, and there was Talia showing her stuff. Remember, I remember I started crying in the text. I was so sorry. Did you want to have a little boy? I said, no, you don't understand. I lost a baby 2 weeks before Christmas. And I said, I'll never have to wonder what my little girl looks like. And so sure enough, every time we'd go, I have so many sonograms, it's crazy. My pregnancy was good. Mind you, I had both my babies with no epidural, with no nothing.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Wow.
Because they told me if I couldn't have kids, I wanted to feel everything.
Mm.
When I first had Andres, I did
Yeah.
not want anything to get in the way.
Jeopardize that. Mhm.
Yeah, to get in the way, or I wanted to feel everything because
Mhm.
Andres was my first miracle baby.
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant or have
Mhm.
kids, and here he is. And then with Aaliyah, the same thing. I was having, damn, that girl was pain. It was pain. Um, and when Dr. Garcia came to ask me if I wanted to get the epidural or whatever, I said no. And my husband was like, you know why she doesn't want to get it? Because she's afraid of back pain, blah, blah, blah. And he said, if you don't get it now, you're not going to be able to get it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse from here. And I was like, oh. So when I finally did agree to it,
Totally.
they came, but I still felt everything because it wasn't working.
Oh, wow.
So finally, the anesthesiologist came out, and the nurses had told me that if I feel a lot of pressure, and it's like a lot of pressure, that means the baby is coming. So finally, like I could feel everything. When I say everything, I could feel everything.
Oh my
And the
goodness.
anesthesiologist came in, and finally I felt the warmth that they talked about. And then I'm not kidding you. Not even like 5 minutes later, I told my mom, the baby's out. And my mom's like, Blanca, they just checked you. I said, the baby's out. I hadn't even been lowered. The bed hadn't even been lowered. The anesthesiologist and the nurse came around, and she goes, oh my gosh. And Dr. Garcia's office was next door to the Methodist, the Metropolitan Methodist.
Mhm.
And so they called him to come in. One push and Talia was out.
Wow.
Wow. And how was she full term? How many weeks were you when you had her?
39 weeks. I had her 39 weeks. Yeah. Yeah, she was a full term, but she ended up staying in the hospital 17 days because she had jaundice and sleep apnea. I remember when they brought her to our room, she spent the night with us. And the next day I was changing her, and all of a sudden her mouth started turning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So they took her. And so she spent the first 17 days in the NICU. They allowed me to stay in the hospital for 5 days with her because I was nursing. But then after that, I had to come home without my baby.
How was that? We can explain that. How was that process?
That was so hard. Leaving the hospital without my baby was the hardest ever. I was there morning, noon, night, evening, because I was nursing. But I would also pump, and the nurses told me I needed to go home because I wasn't going to be good for her. Because I was going to be exhausted when she came out of the hospital. But being without my baby, leaving the hospital without my baby was so emotionally exhausting. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do any of those things because I wanted to be with my child. Any chance I got, I would be up at the hospital. Morning feedings, afternoon feedings, dinner feedings. Even at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was there feeding until the nurses told me that I was going to have to really go home and rest because I wasn't going to be good for the baby when she came home. I had to finally come to terms with that and understand that that's why she was still nursing in a sense because I was still giving her my milk. And I think I psyched myself out in that sense. And probably like the last maybe week that she was in the hospital, I actually didn't go every 2-3 hours or whatever the case may be. But it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. I was blessed that Andres weighed 6 pounds, 6 ounces at 36 weeks. So he was considered a full term. considered a preemie, but because of his weight and because he was feeding, they allowed him to come home.
Okay.
Talia was put in an incubator.
And how was Juan during that time as well,
Yeah.
when you couldn't bring Talia home?
I think Juan was equally emotionally messed up. I think in his own ways, he would cry as well. And he dealt with it in a whole different way than I did. And I think he tried to be strong and comfort me because he knew how I was taking it. But he himself on his own dealt with it in ways that he took up drinking to try to numb what he was feeling inside. We became, during that time, was angry at him. Why? To get out on him. We fought a lot. He took it. He understood what I was going through. And I selfishly took it out on him. I was angry. I was angry again. Why? Why give me a child and then put her in the hospital? And when I was losing my baby, like, all those thoughts came again, like, why? But what doctor said, God had something else planned. Look at her, she's 18, my baby is 25 on this. And I always wanted a big family. Always wanted a big family. And I have 6 kids. 4 ready-mades and 2 that I pushed out.
4 ready-mades.
Oh,
and how many grandbabies do you have now?
Girl, 14th one's on the way. I wanted a big family, and God said, okay, I'm giving it to you my way. Yeah.
My next question is, who was your support system during that journey? Through the whole journey, I know that you just recently shared that you and your husband were going through a tough time at that moment. Did you have other support system, like your mom or your sister or brothers, friends? Who was your support system? I know that you always believed in Jesus. You always believed in God. Did you hold on to him during that time as well? Or were you, because you said that you were asking the whys, so were you leaning on others during that time?
My mom has always been one of my biggest supporters. My mom, is my best friend. My mom, I can go to my mom for anything. And, and my sister. And sad part about it, at that time is that my sister had been trying to get pregnant. And knowing that she was trying, and even at one time I considered being her surrogate if I was able to have another baby, because my sister was so, when I was going through my issues, I would feel bad leaning on my sister, knowing that she had been trying to get pregnant. And couldn't. I think with my sister, it was 17 years for her little girl, who is now 12. And I think 2 years later, she got pregnant with my nephew, Ian. So it took her 17, 18 years before she was pregnant. My cousin Alma our cousin Alma, we've always also had a good relationship. I had friends that I would lean on that are still my friends to this day, that I work with at SAWS. My banana, Raquel, I did talk to God. I did. But I can't say that spiritually moving forward when it came to the stuff that Talia's gone through. It's been, oh my God. And it's funny because it's true what God said, my child will not die, but live to serve him. It is because of her that Juan and I now have the relationship with Jesus. Our walk with Christ is because of her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I started attending church, but when we would have our Sunday school classes, and she would just catch on to things so quickly. She was always a sponge. So I started being her Sunday school teacher when she was like 5, maybe. And then she continued on when she was a preteen and got baptized when I was her teacher.
And I've always been told, all the time by different people that there's something about Talia when she steps out on the court, when she's out on the field, that there's something about her that changes everything. And I'm like, it's the light in her. I do believe that God is going to use her mightily, and I continue to believe that. My son, Ricky, and Marcos are his godparents, and to see my son raise his hands in church, to see him sitting at the table reading his Bible and studying, to see him, hear him speak, about God and not ashamed of it, and now passing that on to my grandson. It's the most beautiful thing to see that he went into the world and realized that the world, there's nothing for him there. And now he's sad, And God is blessing him. God is blessing him.
Yeah, I was his youth leader. I remember so. Him and Josiah, Dios mío. Dios mío. That's all I'm going to say. Him and Josiah together. Dios mío. But yes, I thank God for him. I had the privilege to be his godmother. So praise God for that. And I do want to ask Blanca, if someone is listening who was told they will never be able to have children, what words would you want to say to them right now?
Now that I have Christ in my life, I would say hang on to Jesus and believe not what man says, but what God says, because all things are possible through him. And even though I did not have the relationship with Christ back then, the way I do now, God overlooks our faults and sees our needs. And he knew I needed my babies. And God sees further than we do. So man will say one thing, but God holds our future. And I know because of what I went through and because of what I've seen, what God has done with my sister who waited 17, 18 years to have her babies. Nothing is impossible for God. Nothing. And what God says is what will go. And we just have to place our hope and our trust in him and believe that it is in his timing and his plans are good to prosper us and not to harm us. Because he knows what's coming. When I think about me losing Bean, God knew something was not right. And I strongly feel that he took my baby because he knew that she was going to be safer up with him. And something was wrong with her. But God took her back.
Looking back now, what has God taught you through infertility, miscarriage, and your rainbow babies? Like looking back at everything you went through from the very beginning, from when you were told the news, from your whole journey of just infertility and miscarriage and giving birth to your rainbow babies. What has God taught you through all that?
God has taught me that he holds my future in his hands. God has taught me that my hope is not in man. And so long as I trust him, he will never fail me. Man will, but he won't.
God
And
has the last word.
yeah,
Mhm.
he is the beginning. He is the end. He is the Alpha, the Omega, and everything in between.
And the same yesterday, today, and forever.
His word is truth. He's my everything. And God has taught me to depend on him and no one else.
Amen. Amen. I do want to ask, what are some things that you believe that women who have trouble conceiving or have miscarriage should not be told? So it's like the don'ts. How can people be more sensitive with the words? For example, I don't know if you heard the last episode. How
Listen to it.
When there's women who are infertile and they can't have kids, but not everybody wants to share that. Not everybody wants to make that the news. But yet you have people who are, or when are you having another baby? You know, they keep asking, or they went through a miscarriage and then they're told there's some things, and I believe that, that there's some things that you don't say to a woman who just miscarried. In your words, how can people be more sensitive with their words when it comes to infertility and when it comes to miscarriage?
I think one thing when you have a miscarriage or you lose a baby, there's people that are insensitive, and I don't know if it's intentionally or unintentionally that they don't really listen to what they say. But it's okay. Well, you can probably have another one later. Or if
That's
they
a very
say,
famous one.
yeah, or when they say, how far along were you? Oh, well, the baby wasn't that big, or you were still in your early stages. What?
Wow.
Yeah. What's another one that they don't say, especially when, like my sister, you know, that the Lord hadn't blessed her yet with her children, but people are saying, "You still don't have any children?" Yeah.
Wow.
Or, "Are you ever gonna have any children? Do y'all want children?" Like, that's none of your business. Yeah, stuff like that. I don't know. This people are insensitive sometimes and don't realize what they say, and they don't know what our bodies are fighting sometimes, you know.
Yeah. And I know in the last episode, Sister Sarah actually said something that really made a lot of sense. It was a good point. Use discernment. I don't think God is going to tell you to tell someone who is their child words that are going to hurt them, you know? And I do understand there's a lot of time, especially like the old generation, you know, they happen to ask a lot of questions like how it was years ago. Everybody, like if you didn't have kids by a certain age, you were, it was like not normal. Or once you got married, it was right away have kids. I remember, you know,
especially in our culture, as you know, in the Hispanic culture, that's huge. Also, as Hispanic women, there's that stereotype that we get pregnant easily, you know, that we're so fertile and you just look at us and we'll end up pregnant. And that's realizing that that's not the story for everyone.
Yeah. Everybody has like, you just don't know. You know, I learned that years ago that those are just questions you do not ask. Like if you see that a couple is not having a baby, you don't ask because you just don't know. What if they're struggling? What if they were told they were infertile and they've been trying for years? And Rose made a point last episode because, as you know, she has been trying for years and she still hasn't gotten pregnant. She's had some infertility issues. And she mentioned that there's times that you're not even thinking about that. But then someone will ask you, oh, you still don't have kids? So it takes her back to those thoughts like, wow, you know, I'm still not able to have kids. You know, thank you for sharing your opinion on that. Because I do believe that people need to be more sensitive with the words with women, not just women, men too. Men too, like telling men when are you and your wife having a kid? Or when are you and, your significant other having a child? Because you just don't know. What if it's the man that's infertile?
I've heard where they say, hey, what, you shooting blanks or what?
Yes. That's a
yes,
one.
yes.
Like what?
Yes. And that in the last episode, I kind of joked when Brother Isaac was sharing some of the inappropriate questions that he was, or statements that was told to him that were just very, just inappropriate.
Insensitive.
And I kind of joked of telling them, hey, get out of my bedroom, because those are just some things, especially that, hey, you're shooting blanks. That is so inappropriate.
I've heard that one a lot.
Disrespectful.
I've heard it, like I've been there when people who have told men, are you shooting blanks or what? You still can't have kids. And what if it's him? When a man is told that he cannot have kids, that's their manhood right there. They're very sensitive. Yeah. So we have to be not only sensitive to women, but also men too. A lot of people, like, this whole topic, infertility and miscarriage, a lot of people think about that right away. It's only the woman, but we need to think about the man too. The man suffers too. They do deal with grief. They grieve when the woman miscarries. They grieve when they find out they're infertile and they cannot get their wives or significant others pregnant. So yeah, I just think that's very important to cover, because we need to be more sensitive with our words and ask God to, like someone said the last time, I don't know who it was in the last episode, sometimes just don't say nothing at all. Just stay quiet.
And be there for them and share that space with them. If they're grieving a miscarriage or grieving the loss of a child, you don't even have to say anything. Just be there with them. Let them know that you're there in that space. In our last episode too, Sarah mentioned something that really stood out to me. And I want to ask you if that's your hope as well. She mentioned that her hope, because she had 2 miscarriages as well, and her hope is knowing that one day when she gets to heaven, she's going to have 2 babies that are going to yell, mommy. And that I just want to ask, is that your hope as well?
Yes. Yes. I often picture it. And what's the crazy thing is that Talia never knew about me. She didn't know I miscarried. But she said, I have a sister in heaven, right? When she was little.
Wow.
Or like, my hope is that. My hope is that when the Lord takes me, that He says, welcome home, my good and faithful servant. And then He opens the gates and my baby's going to be right there waiting for me. I don't forget about her. I think about her all the time. I wonder if she would have looked like Talia, and everything I prayed for that she would have. Like, I hope she has my hair. I hope she has my eyebrows. I hope she has your lips, and exactly as I asked God for, that's exactly where I got. Except I wish she didn't have my attitude. Just with Andres, it's like my miracle baby.
We have 2 miracle babies, 2 rainbow babies, and that is beautiful. So thank you, Blanca, so much.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing.
I knew that you had miscarriages, but I had no idea that it was. You know what? I think I only thought it was 1 miscarriage. I wasn't until you mentioned it.
I only remember hearing about one. I didn't know you were at 22 weeks.
22 weeks.
And to think too that you were, when you lost that baby at 22 weeks, you were in your 2nd trimester, meaning your hormones were already there. So you lose that. Just because you have a miscarriage doesn't mean that your hormones go away overnight.
Nope.
Either. So you're still going through that postpartum. So there's all those emotions, roller coaster of emotions. Yeah. And then also after having Talia and having to leave her there at the hospital, you're going through postpartum as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of emotions. So I have one last question for you now that we're talking about this, and we'll close with this. What would be your advice to men, to husbands, on how to be that support system for their wives, their significant others that may be going through a miscarriage or that may be having to leave their baby in NICU and in the hospital and having to go home without their baby?
I know that in the midst of what I was going through, that Juan, in a sense, would kind of get after me, not because he was upset at me.
Mm-hmm.
He was upset at the situation, and then would get mad because I wasn't taking care of myself, in a sense, because
Okay.
I always wanted to be at the hospital. And he saw what I was going through. He saw that I was starting to get sick. He saw that I was not eating. He saw that none of that. So he, in a sense, was getting after me. And when he was getting after me, it just felt worse because I already felt an absence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And the best thing for a man to do is allow her, comfort her, try to understand her.
Mm-hmm.
When she says, no, I don't want to eat right now, just be patient. Patience will go a long way, because if you're like upset, well, you need to take care of yourself. And that's how he meant it, in a comfort way.
Mm-hmm.
You need to take care of yourself like that, because I'm his wife.
Mm-hmm.
He cares about me. And I took it like, don't tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
hold her, comfort her, and try to understand her. But at the same time, the woman has to understand the man too, because
They're losing too. They're going through it too. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're going through it too. Mm-hmm.
Again, y'all made me cry.
Thank you so much. Once again, thank you for sharing your journey, your story on this. Yes, a lot of this I'm hearing for the first time, and I appreciate allowing for it to be on this platform for other people to hear your story. Amen. Those that may be struggling with infertility, miscarriage, that there is hope.
Yes.
And our hope is in Jesus. Amen.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We will continue our topic on infertility and miscarriage on our next episode, where we will have another special guest. May God bless you, and remember that God is love, mercy, and grace.